One of the stars of Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, Janelle Monáe. Janelle Monáe, you recently posted a little note titled "Things to Always Remember" that included this David Bowie quote.
Oh, yeah.
Right here.
That's one of my favorites.
Would you like to read this, or would you like me to read this to the people?
Yeah, this quote, I saw Moonage Daydream, and I'd heard this quote before, but make sure you watch it. It's a great, movie documentary. But David Bowie is somebody that I really respect, admire, feel a kinship to. And he says, I think it's terribly dangerous for an artist to fulfill other people's expectations. If you feel safe in the area that you're working in, you're not working in the right area. Always go a little further into the water than you feel you're capable of being in. Go a little bit out of your depth, and when you don't feel that your feet are quite touching the bottom, you're just about in the right place to do something exciting.
That's challenging, though.
Yeah.
That's challenging. That can feel dangerous.
It can. It's when we're going to float, and it's a good reminder as we continue to create and move forward to not be afraid to reimagine who we can be and where we can go. And, that's what I'm excited about, discovering something new about myself this year.
I'm not sure what I love more, that David Bowie quote, Janelle's reaction to it, or the overextended water metaphor. I'm Sean Adams. This is a prologue / introduction / quick ramble editor's note from me about what you can expect from this podcast over the coming months. I've spent the last few years thinking about doing this. I spent a little bit of time experimenting with podcast formats in music, and I didn't really find many of them felt that they worked as a consistent outlet. And I think it's because I wasn't approaching it with the right mindset. So I'm approaching this as an audio publication. So taking everything that I love about magazines and some of the things that I like about online magazines and turning it into something where one day you turn up and you're listening to an interview with a massive artist that you're a big fan of, and you're listening to figure out quite how nervous I was. And you can hear my newspapers and notebook ruffling in my pocket. And I think that there's a big space then to introduce you to something you weren't expecting to hear. Turn the page, small feature on a new artist you never heard of. Turn the page, there's something else where someone is explaining that records are made from PVC, and you'd never thought about the fact that that comes from petrol. And, are there plant-based alternatives? And yes, and here are the people that are doing that. And here's someone that's also doing it, but they're using non-toxic materials. They're recyclable because records take 1,000 years to recycle. That's just one thing that over the last year has slightly melted my brain, but also given me hope that the music industry might address some of the pledges that were made after COP26 to address the climate crisis. And that's before you start to look at server farms and all the other things, throwaway merch, vegan inks. There's a whole labyrinth of topics to explore just with the environment and music. And I'm really excited that I might be able to create some space where those topics can be discussed, both with experts and with artists that are curious about them, that have the emotional minefield, warp field, not quite sure what the right term is. Minefield was the word I was looking for, but I don't think that's a real word. But I can promise you that the podcast usually will not just be me rambling at you. It is not my outlet for my ego. It is purely a place to platform others, their ideas, to understand their creativity, to really let me dive into a topic in the hope that if you follow me, that we're both going to come out the other end knowing a little bit more than when we came in. I have had conversations with a friend of mine about sound therapy, which is something which I've had an awareness of, and I've seen gong baths and sound bowls and those kind of things, and it's intrigued me, but I've never fully understood it. So I'll be doing my best to find out a lot more about all of that, and potentially getting my brain tested and different things as sounds rather than music plays, and to try and work out whether if some musicians integrated some of these sounds, or if they already have, like, have they had some therapeutic powers over us? And is that why we listen to certain songs on repeat? There's lots and lots and lots of ground to cover with just that topic. That's, again, another strand of topics I'm thinking of talking about. So that's kind of a brief overview of some of the things that I'm thinking this podcast will take you on. If you're a music obsessive, this is hopefully your ideal journal style, magazine style podcast feed, that some weeks you will just go, nah, that doesn't sound very interesting, and other weeks you'll find yourself listening to something maybe a year after I've recorded it, and hopefully it will still make sense and introduce you to an idea or a person or a campaign that you weren't aware of. But to bring things full circle, if I can find myself chatting to Janelle Monáe about being an editor on the Reddit forums, then that would be pretty cool. That's not really a topic for an entire interview, but I'm fascinated by the fact that that's one of the things that she was doing just before she became the super mega star that she's now become. If it also means that I can look at some of the ways that governments in both the UK and the US are addressing streaming or addressing harassment on social platforms, like, again, that feels like something which, joining the dots between the music world and everything else that's happening in the world, could be at least an interesting pot to stir. And when I think of those words, I often think of an interview we once did with Bjork, where she was talking about revolutions whilst looking at her cup and stirring her tea. And that, to me, is one of those small details that a writer would spot and artificial intelligence wouldn't know what to do with. And you'll be glad to know that I won't be getting artificial intelligence to write my scripts, although it probably would have done a better job if I'd actually scripted it and not just written a few bullet points for this prologue. But I am going to ask someone who's written literally a book on ChatGPT, the new AI technology, which you may have heard of because at the time of recording, Nick Cave is trending for slagging off some lyrics that the technology wrote. And there's a lot of simple things that, and boring and functional things that some of this technology can do, which may even free up creatives to do more, but obviously not get it to do the thing that they're brilliant at, which is their creative tasks. So I'm kind of intrigued by a lot of these things that are happening in technology. And again, another strand of things which you will see popping up in amongst all this is some of those people pioneering at the bleeding front edge of technology, often not bleeding for the right reasons, I guess. So I've been Sean Adams, and hopefully you will join me over the coming weeks and months as this podcast unfolds. Most of the topics that I've mentioned in this will hopefully intrigue you. But if there's other things you think we should be covering, I've set up a community on a new platform called Geneva. It's like a group chat. It's a bit more like WhatsApp than Discord. And you can pop some ideas in there if you have them. Obviously, you can just tweet me. I'm at Sean in Sound on Twitter, and I'm on Instagram with that name too. And yeah, this is the start of something, and something I've been thinking about for a while, and hopefully the idea of an audio publication will slowly begin to make more sense, and the sense of purpose behind why this is going to exist will hopefully become self-evident.